He's going to announce the 1 minute mark. You hear him call that out.
Top, moins 1 minute.
Or go back into the final 60 seconds before liftoff. You were saying?
And once these 8 engines will have been ignited, the automatic liftoff sequencer check the parameters of functioning of this engine.
That's all 8 engines.
In terms of pressure and temperature.
4 main engines, 4 boosters.
Absolutely.
8 engines.
These make 8. And when the values of pressure and temperature and thrust of this engine have been found correct, then it gives the order to open the very powerful jaws which hold the vehicle to the ground.
And then we have liftoff. And we'll have liftoff in 20 seconds. Meantime, we're going to fade away and let you enjoy the last final seconds of liftoff. We'll be back after Ariane clears the tower.
À tous de l'EDO, attention pour décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, feu. Allumage. Décollage. Tous les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
You saw the launcher rise. You saw the 8 points of light. Those are the 8 engines we mentioned, the 4 inner rings of the main engines of the first stage and the 4 outer rings.
The type of mean used to track the vehicle. It's an infrared camera where we see faintly the vehicle, but clearly the plume of the 8 engine.
Well, it's a very clear night.
And we are listening to the permanent report from our specialists, listening to the and looking at the telemetry which are beamed back from the vehicle to the ground through the CSG telemetry network.
2.2 tons of fuel per second being burned now, blown out the back, lifting off.
And
the DDO says everything is normal.
The vehicle from Jupiter, we can hear it.
First stage is going to burn for about 3.5 minutes.
And maybe a word of explanation of the curve you have on your screen. On the left part, you see the vertical shape of the trajectory climbing right now and going to east. And at the lower part of the curve, you also see the vertical view of the path. So right now the
looks like it's tilting over. That means that
it's
that's just the camera.
It's passing above the camera, or almost above, which makes the angle changing completely. And on the right part of the screen, below the number of the flight, the 81, the 2 customer name, you see the number of the computer, mainframe computer. So we still have burnout.
Largage des propulseurs d'appoint ergol liquide.
Beautiful shot of the flame out of the booster.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux.
DDO says everything is normal. You can see the cursor climbing up the curve there towards what is written SEP 1-2, that's separation of the first and second stage. This is an animation of what's happening up there.
And then the third stage will burn for still some...
12 minutes?
No.
Third stage?
Less than that. First. Sorry.
Tous les paramètres sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
DDO says again, trajectory and parameters are all normal. Coming up towards separation of first and second stage. Coming in about 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Followed by second stage ignition.
So as you see on the curve, we're approaching of the
Extinction du premier étage.
There's the first stage burnout.
Burnout, separation.
Séparation du premier étage et allumage du deuxième étage.
And separation of the stages, which you could follow on the little black dots.
Pression foyer normale.
Yeah, but now the tracking infrared, we just follow the first stage falling down, so it doesn't follow any longer the vehicle, because here the hot point are the engine of the first stage, which are falling down, and not the second stage, which is cooler.
Everything normal. Again, take a look at the cursor climbing up the curve towards Sep Quaff. That's the Quaff is the fairing. And higher up, you see separation of second and third stages. Third stage is burning one engine. Give you an idea of Ariane mass now. This is something that we always like to do. When we took off, the total mass at ignition was 481 tons. And
tous les paramètres sont normaux. La trajectoire est normale.
Everything normal, says the DDO. We've dropped the first stage and we're down to how many tons? 57.
58
from Largage de la Coiffe.
And what's interesting also to know is where are these pieces of hardware falling down? Because the liquid strap-on booster will fall something like 200 kilometers from the pad. It means in the middle of the ocean. This is why we cut them.
We've just had fairing separation, as you heard the DDO say. We're coming up on second and third stage separation.
After that, the first stage falls further, some 800 kilometers from Kourou, also in the ocean, and this is also for the same reason that we open the tank after separation.
Yeah, because after they burn out,
tous les paramètres sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
Everything is normal, he says. Both the first and second stages, they're sort of open up like a sardine can, and the tanks are emptied of any little drops of fuel in there, so they fall in the drink and they sink, right?
Absolutely, because we have a commitment to the various ships going over the Atlantic not to leave any wreckage, floating empty tanks in the ocean. So we just
it's one of the advantages of having all the ocean underneath you is you can launch and drop things under you and there's nobody there.
No population.
It's one of the criteria for choosing French Guiana.
Extinction du deuxième étage.
Second stage burnout.
Séparation du deuxième étage.
Separation of the second stage.
Allumage du troisième étage.
Okay, we're into the
pression foyer normale.
Beginning of the third stage burn, and everything is normal, says the DDO Pierre Bardier. Following our mass profile, if you're interested, we began how much? 481 tons? 57 tons after dropping the first stage?
58, and now we are at 18.
18 tons.
So interesting figures in terms of mass and fluids and things like this. As you said, we lifted off, we had 480 tons. Of that, 80% is fluid.
Fuel.
Yeah. It means only 10% is
Acquisition télémesure natale.
We've just been picked up by our first downrange station over the border in Brazil. There are stations in Brazil in the middle of the Atlantic at Ascension Island and over on the east coast of Africa. There's an agreement with the Brazilian government that allows use of these facilities. There's some additional ESA equipment that have been installed there. But these are stations that track the launcher as she makes her way across the Atlantic Ocean in about 20 minutes. And we'll separate the satellites over Africa coming up shortly. Third stage burn, this is the long one. Third stage is going to burn until...
Les paramètres propulsifs sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
Until plus 17 minutes after liftoff. Another 10 minutes. This is our liquid hydrogen and oxygen propulsion, which is a delicate matter, which is why we had our delay. 10 tons of cryogenic fuel.
Of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. And this will burn for some 13 minutes.
And push Ariane all the way across
on the screen, we have not given the complete explanation of the right part of the screen. You see below CP1 the letter T, which is the time in the mission, right now 468.59 seconds. Moyen is a French word for mean, and right now we just saw the switch from BR1 to CIS, which is the onboard backup guidance system. When we are out of sight of the radar, we switch to telemetry information. S has disappeared. It's no longer a ground system. It was the elevation above the horizon. A is the altitude, this is the ground, and V is the French word for vitesse, speed,
velocity.
In kilometers velocity. For
we can use the same letter.
And here we have a view of the pad empty. with the launch table. It's a view from the camera on top of the gantry.
Now, when the pad is empty like that, things start getting...
Les paramètres bord sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
Everything is normal, says the DDO. Things start preparing immediately for the next launch, right?
Yeah, the next launch is already in progress, because in the preparation zone, the first, second, third stage have been assembled, and we
They're ready to go.
Since 1 week, one of the two satellites and the second satellite has arrived today.
So what do? They clean up and
yes, absolutely. They will clean up and they will refurbish the launch table, which is well protected against the flame.
Now, this is a continuous process, been going ever since 1979, Christmas Eve 1979, the first Ariane 1. There's never been a...
Perte normale par les moyens de Kourou.
He says
so we have lots of signal
from the Kourou tracking station.
Now
that's
the launch
normal
vehicle
procedure.
is so high and so far away, it's already flying above the Atlantic. You see at the lower part of the screen, it's far away after the middle of the Atlantic, more than, I cannot read the distance.
This third stage.
Away. Tous les paramètres sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
The new on the curve, you can see the cursor climbing to X H10. H10 is another word for the third stage. That'll be third stage shutdown. And you see the satellite separations of telecom and INSAT up higher on the curve. This third stage is actually an augmented third stage, which has become standard Ariane 4 equipment since May, I believe, Flight 73. It's called the H10-3, the third version, one of the constant upgrades of the third stage of the launch vehicle.
And this is why tonight we can
flies longer.
Higher performance. Yeah, it flies longer.
And we get more payload capacity.
Absolutely.
We can haul more up there.
So les paramètres sont normaux et la trajectoire est normale.
As you see on this global trajectory, that after the third stage burnout, we climb fairly high, because we are already at this time, we will be, on the geotransfer orbit.
How fast are we going when the third stage is burning out?
We are aiming at 9.2 kilometers per second, and we are here right now at 6.6 kilometers per second.
9 kilometers per second. And that's the speed you need to be able to inject a satellite.